Hey there everyone, AJ back again for the Mighty Gluestick channel. I make videos about Dungeons & Dragons lore full-time and have a huge collection of videos on monster ecology, fantasy world history, cosmology, character classes, and magic items on my channel. If you like what I do, please consider becoming a member of the channel by clicking the join button down below or backing me on Patreon where you can get access to all of the scripts I write for these vids if you prefer to read what I'm saying. I also have a Discord server with a very active community, and of course subscribe to me here for 2 video uploads per week and a live stream every weekend. Welcome to another remastered episode that looks in great detail about another form of true dragon. This week we will be drawing on the information found in the 2nd edition Forgotten Realms Draconomicon by Nigel Findlay, published in 1990, plus the 3.5 edition Draconomicon, The Book of Dragons by Andy Collins, Skip Williams, James Wyatt, published by Wizards of the Coast in November 2003, as well as notes from Wikipedia and my own experience on running one of my favourite true dragons. During the last 10,000 years, but even more so in the last 4,000, most silver dragons have taken to the personal belief that humanity, above all other races, is to be most admired. Most silver dragons have good, solid reasons behind their assertion that their kind would gain great benefits if they could combine the tremendous drive of the short-lived but ambitious humans with the long-lived wisdom and individual power that their species has. With a combination of draconic perspective and human initiative, what could they not accomplish? What could they not regain better than it ever was before? This philosophy aside, many silver dragons have and do form true and lasting friendships with humans, thanks to this inherent ability to polymorph themselves into a less threatening form. They usually begin such friendships by deception, taking a non-humanoid form when they first move among humanity, observing and learning about them when they're young, before taking on a humanoid form and engaging with them on an intellectual and emotional basis. Silver dragons are somewhat unusual among their kind in that they take a more objective view of their history and can see the shortcomings of dragonkind. Yes, they are mighty and live for many centuries, but with this comes a dangerous complacency and this attitude that anything worth doing can be done later, as they have plenty of time to do it. So throughout their history, dragons have missed countless opportunities and been too slow to react to the ever-changing and dynamic world around them. Humans are rarely too slow and hardly ever miss an opportunity when it presents itself. In fact, they will go to reckless extremes just to create new opportunities for themselves where none existed before. To the silver dragons, this is endlessly fascinating, and they have developed something of an addiction to being among the humans and participating in this hectic, breakneck, all-or-nothing action. The wise and powerful gold dragons may study history, but the silver dragons live it. Silvers are dragons though. They are highly social creatures, but they're not humans, and their focus and their loyalty and their longing is always ultimately tied to their own culture and their own kind. No matter how deeply involved they become in humanoid affairs, when their culture has demands of their time, they rarely forsake their duties and challenges and can be absent from humanoid civilization for years, decades, sometimes even centuries before they return. So while a silver dragon may fall in love with a human, at some point they may be called away, and by the time they return, the human may have died of old age. While silver dragons appear to comfortably maintain a humanoid persona and shape for many years at a time, in truth this deception weighs heavily on their intrinsically noble nature. They are proud of and most comfortable in their natural form and would rather have these relationships with humanoids without having to appear as something that they're not. So in most cases, eventually they will reveal to their close humanoid friends their true form. Coming out to them can happen unintentionally. Some humanoids will figure it out on their own, but the dragons tend to associate with humanoids who will take the revelation in their stride, and a long history of close relationships has taught them that it's an extremely bad idea to form a loving relationship with a humanoid without first telling them the truth. No matter how close such a relationship and friendship grows, however, a silver dragon always eventually returns to its own kind for some time. Often, in the case of really good friends, the silver dragon remains in human society for the entire life of its human associate, which is, after all, rarely more than 70 years, less than 1/10 the lifespan of the dragon. Silver dragons do change their outlook eventually, having grown a little weary over many human lifetimes of their relationships, but they would not exchange their memories, the adventures, the triumphs and tragedies for anything, even if they become more and more reluctant to start new relationships as they reach many centuries of age. You can imagine how the ever-increasing gap between the dragon and the humanoids would become emotionally distancing, as dragons' cultural and historic references become more and more outdated, forgotten, or their recollections of true historic events are overwritten by false narratives that are now believed by all to be factual accounts. It's a large part of the reason ancient silver dragons don't often want to discuss history with humanoids. Easier to avoid the conversation than to have to navigate the younger race's mistaken notions of their own ancestors and history. It's also one of the reasons silver dragons have such an unerring accuracy when it comes to locating suitable ruins abandoned by civilized races as the sites for their new lairs. Silver dragons love to fly. They love the clouds and can spend many hours each day just enjoying flight for its own sake, particularly if they spend the rest of their time confined to the earthbound form of a humanoid. Silver dragons have a long and ancient history of involvement with the elemental plane of air, as that aspect of elemental force seems to be a part of them. They feel the air in ways humanoids simply can't understand. 5th edition tells us that silver dragons dwell among the clouds, making their lairs on secluded cold mountain peaks. Though many are comfortable in natural caverns, complexes, or abandoned mines, silver dragons covet the lost outposts of humanoid civilization. An abandoned mountaintop citadel or a moat tower raised by a long-dead wizard is the sort of lair that every silver dragon dreams of. Within those lairs, the dragon can create fog as if it had cast the fog cloud spell at will, and are able to summon a blisteringly cold blast of wind that screams through their lair, blowing out flames, flushing out smoke and gases, inflicting damage on creatures who suffer from the effects of sudden and extreme wind chill. After an adult dragon resides in an area for a while, they're not just in tune with the air and climate around them, but have a supernatural influence over it themselves. The region within a staggering 6-mile radius can have its weather altered by the dragon's force of will once per day, just like the control weather spell. The air itself seems to take on some aspect of the dragon's consciousness and protects good-hearted folk. Those who take a plummeting fall will find themselves instead wafting down to the ground almost as gentle as a feather. A silver dragon also has the remarkable ability to make clouds and fog within its lair as solid as stone, forming structures and other objects as it wishes over the course of weeks and months, which combines with the silver dragon's individual personality and tastes to create stunning lairs. I always think of the crystalline, stark beauty of Superman's Fortress of Solitude. If the dragon dies, their supernatural influence dies as well, fading away and reverting back to its normal state over the course of the next 10 days. Now keep in mind, many silver dragons live in the cities and regions of civilized humanoids, able to control the weather. This has massive implications for things like agriculture and horticulture, protecting the city from invading armies and fleets of sailing ships. Otaeri Liacanos of Cormanthor, Shatashri of the Moonsea and Dalelands, Sheldir of Waterdeep, Samara of Brightmoon, Tesculada of Evermeet, Argenta Purenote of the Stormhorns, Arcentaur Kilawuri of the Dalelands, Dargentum of Ironstar, and many others across the realms create weather patterns as they see fit, which gives them a combined power that could completely cripple any humanoid civilization if they set their minds to creating extended droughts, tornadoes, and so on. Standing in the presence of an adult silver dragon in its true form is a humbling experience. They are extremely powerful and graceful creatures with a noble bearing and features. Their eyes are alive with intelligence, their faces much more expressive than the most people assume they would be. A silver dragon shimmers as if sculpted from pure metal, its face given a noble cast by high eyes and a sweeping beard like chin spikes. A spiny frill rises high over its head, tracing down its neck to the tip of its tail. A silver wormling scales are blue-grey with silver highlights. As the dragon approaches adulthood, its colour gradually brightens until its individual scales tend to blend in, barely visible. As the dragon grows older, its pupils fade until its eyes resemble orbs of liquid mercury. A silver dragon adopts a benign humanoid persona, such as a kindly old sage or a young wanderer. They like to keep on the move and rarely get involved with anything like a regular stationary job like a tavern keeper or some such. They develop close friendships with their mortal companions, as they would say. Even though they outlive them by many centuries, they don't think of the humanoids as pets. They respect intelligent life and have quite an egalitarian attitude. When humans in particular get to know them well, the silver dragon is liable to share stories of particularly clever ways of dealing with intruders in their lair, or anecdotes about their famous ancestor dragons who collected the most impressive hoards. Among their own kind, silver dragons have a distinct culture. They certainly have that draconic trait of having a dominant hierarchy. It's hard not to when the older they get, the larger and more powerful they become. Silver dragons must step away from their humanoid lives on a regular basis, returning to their true forms to mate and rear offspring, or to tend to their hoards and personal affairs. Because many lose track of time while away, they switch over to dragon time. They sometimes return to find that their companions have grown old or died. Silver dragons often end up befriending several generations of humanoids within a single family as a result. Silvers believe that living a moral life involves doing good deeds and ensuring that one's actions cause no undeserved harm to other sentient beings. They don't take it upon themselves to root out evil as gold and bronze dragons do, going on self-appointed missions, but they'll gladly oppose creatures that dare to commit evil acts or harm the innocent around them. So they will step in if an innocent person or creature is being brutally attacked without being asked. But unless the threat is immediate, they'll not get directly involved unless asked to. Really, in practical terms, they will get involved in whatever events are going on around them, and rather than forming their ethics and morals in a vacuum, they're highly responsive to whatever the humanoid community or dragon clan is involved with. Silver dragons may not be very violent towards humanoids compared to other kinds of dragon, but they have a very good understanding of both humanoid and draconic combat strategy. They will probably have been involved with at least a few large battles and certainly have fought quite a few other dragons before they pass beyond their adult age. Silver dragons, like most dragons other than the golds, don't tend to sit down in humanoid form and write an autobiography for anyone to read. They know a fair bit of dragon folklore, some ancient draconic myths and legends, but they're typically very reluctant to share this stuff with humanoids, and among their own kind, dragons only keep these alive in a spoken oral history. Most works said to be ancient knowledge of dragonkind were written by other creatures, mostly humanoids, who wrote down what the dragons chose to tell them. Silvers form loosely knit communities based on extended family groups. This doesn't mean that the group or clan lives together, far from it. A few hundred miles can separate even closely related silver dragons. It merely means that the members of the group feel a higher loyalty and respect towards members of their group than they do towards those outside it. Even among the silvers, there can be bitter and deadly clan rivalries and hostility that may be rooted in events that took place many centuries ago. Silver dragons have a deep taboo against mating with members of the same family group. Thus, when they feel the urge to mate, silvers sometimes have to go far afield to find an acceptable candidate. Either sex can initiate this courtship. Silvers are civilized in all things, and their courtship is no exception, with the rites being very decorous and courteous. When two dragons have agreed to be mates, they must receive the blessings of the seniors of both family groups. This is rarely withheld and not without a good cause. Typically it would be something like, no, actually that's your second cousin. Silvers share the concept of an oath of concord with the golds, so that's their version of a marriage contract, with a slight difference. A silver's oath is binding only until offspring from the union have reached adulthood at 101 years old. Some dragons' unions last for centuries and even for life as the couples keep raising broods of offspring together. Really depends on the circumstances. Though they can be found nearly anywhere, silver dragons love high mountains and vast open skies with billowing clouds. You'll find the highest concentration of young silver dragons around the mountain peaks and remote, mostly forgotten hilltop ruins of wizard towers and such. They also have a remarkable power, something they share with cloud giants, of creating a cloud lair. A cloud lair always has an enchanted area with a solid floor for laying eggs and storing treasure. Silver dragons often dwell in towns or in dungeons. When doing so, they always situate themselves near or one or more open areas where they can assume their true form when necessary. Silver dragons despise red dragons for their love of carnage and penchant for destruction. Duels between the two varieties are furious and deadly, but silver dragons generally get the upper hand, usually by working together against their foes and often by accepting assistance from non-dragons. They tend to get into fights with them because the red dragons tend to hang out around mountaintops as well. Silver dragons are dedicated omnivores and seek a variety of foods. Many prefer human fare, obviously, and exist on it exclusively for years without suffering any ill effects. Though many silver dragons have favourite dishes, they seldom pass up the chance to try something new. Silver dragons prefer portable treasure that they can keep with them while living among humanoids. They especially prize items that show exceptional workmanship, everything from carefully cut gems to intricate carvings or to textiles and jewellery. When forced into combat, they remain in their assumed forms and attempt to quickly end battles using spells and magical abilities if they have them. When fighting in their true forms, they prefer to remain airborne and will use any clouds in the area to conceal themselves and take advantage of their ability to move through clouds in unusual ways. No matter how or who they are fighting, silver dragons usually seek to eliminate the leader or the most aggressive foe first, in hopes of intimidating and persuading the survivors to surrender or retreat. You can find all the stats for the silver dragon easily enough, but they have the dual breath weapon as all metallic dragons do. The first is a 60-foot blast of icy elemental cold that requires a DC 20 constitution check to avoid a massive 13d8 cold damage capable of splitting a fortified wall, blasting the defenders back and shattering their frozen bodies on the opposite wall. The second is a paralyzing breath, also a 60-foot cone requiring a difficulty class 20 constitution save, or victims will be under the effect of total paralysis on each of their turns until they can beat the DC 20 and recover. This effect lasts for up to a full minute. Remember, the dragon or its allies can easily inflict horrific critical wounds on them while they're in such a vulnerable state, and also note that those are both constitution saving throw based breath weapons, which can be a weak spot for some creatures. As beings who don't particularly seek out or enjoy violence, ironically, silver dragons can be the most brutal and merciless in their application of it. For them, they want the fight to be over quickly, and so employ overwhelming force immediately, leaving no question in their foes' minds that if they survived, it's just because the dragon let them live, or they got extremely lucky. Do not underestimate the ability to polymorph at will as an action. Do not overlook the fact that the dragon can assume all sorts of different shapes, from a mouse to an elephant. They can perform hit and fade tactics to an unbelievable degree of perfection, sneaking in as an insect, popping out of nowhere and unleashing the full power of their supernatural, frightful presence. Might I add, it's not restricted to them being full dragon form, so they can go from a damn near invisible mouse to the world's most frightening and indestructible kitten, to fluttering out the window as a bat, to dragon form and unleashing a full breath weapon that makes the stone wall the window is set in explode, and everyone inside who is not completely confused and terrified is now freezing to death. The dragon can follow up with a legendary action to beat its wings, throwing everyone around like rag dolls. So if you're not paying attention, that was a DC 18 Wisdom saving throw, followed by a DC 20 Constitution saving throw, followed by a DC 21 Dexterity saving throw, and the dragon didn't even have to lay a finger on them. Silver dragons do like to travel. They like to form close relationships and friendships, and they like to get involved in the ambitions and righteous struggles of civilized humanoids. So they naturally gravitate towards adventurers. And what do adventurers tend to accumulate? Wealth and magic items. So absolutely equip your silver dragon with potions, rings, amulets, wands, rods, and wondrous items. They love to decorate their horns with glittering white and blue gemstones, have no problem using iron stones, and their lairs are packed with works of art, piles of precious coins, and quite a few trophies of their long decades of adventuring. You never know what you'll find in the silver dragon hoard. Getting access to one and getting out alive again is the thing though, as they swap stories about fiendish lair traps and defences like we take Instagram snaps of our last restaurant meal. Please hit the like button if you made it this far, subscribe if you like what I do, check out my Patreon for all the full scripts for these videos, buy some sweet merchandise from my Teespring shop, wear your geek with pride, and as always, thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.